Hello and welcome to Ham Nation, episode 487 for February 3rd, 2021. How's it going, everybody? I'm Josh KI6NAZ. Welcome to Ham Nation. Thanks so much for joining us out here. I'm hot. Oh, there we go. I appreciate you joining us. So let's flip it on over to the multi-host here and say hello to everybody. Hey! We've got somebody, new face. Well, not a new face, but a face that hasn't been here in a couple of weeks. We got Bob Heil in the house. How you doing, Bob?
I'm good. I slipped in the back door. You guys didn't know I was coming. See, you got to watch that. No, I missed everybody. It just seems like every Wednesday we have something going on, but doing all these presentations to clubs and so on. But one canceled on me when they moved it. So I said, I know what I'm going to do. So thanks for getting me in here so quickly. And we'll be here a little bit, but it's sure good to be back with everybody. And I hope everyone's being safe and healthy.
Well, thanks for joining us out here again. Gordo looks like he's just got back from Winter Field Day. How you doing, Gordo?
A winter field day was good, but in our hearts and in our warm jackets and noggins, we're thinking of those in the Northeast that just got hammered. So we're with you, Northeast. Play radio, stay warm, put your hands around the 807s and have some spares. And we'll see you in a few minutes.
And Dawn, right above Gordo there, you're staying warm in the shack, it looks like. How you doing?
Yeah, we're trying. It's 68 degrees in here, 45 degrees outside. It was actually close to 80 on Sunday. My wife and I got in the hot tub, first time in about 3 months. And then we were down, we're supposed to have, I think, a hard freeze this weekend. So, yeah, we're feeling the tail end of that nor'easter up there. So well, we've got a lot of hot ham radio stuff for you to keep you warm tonight, including a solar update from Dr. T. So we'll peer at the sun. Well, no, we won't. We'll watch Dr. T tell us about the sun, and we'll have a whole lot more with the Newsline and a bunch of other stuff, Josh.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And Randy there, how you doing?
Doing good here. It's about 41 here on the Oregon coast. It's stopped raining. We've had a lot of rain and been out cutting trees down. So, and also working on rebuilding the ham shack here.
Yeah.
Right on. I can't forget, we got Amanda. I did have to jumble things around a little bit to get Bob in. So how you doing, Amanda?
We're doing good, and I can't believe we're warmer than Randy out there. We're about 45 degrees here in Colorado. Stay tuned. I've got a great interview about a QSO party a lot of you probably haven't heard of, and I'm going to introduce you to the president of that club. So stay tuned, and I'll be taking your questions the whole evening and interrupting my beautiful hosts here whenever possible to send those questions along. So keep them coming.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. So let's
we're gonna have a lot of fun, I think, tonight, Josh. Let's kick the show off if we can with a man who needs no introduction. He is the man who started this whole journey about 10 years ago and brought us all together to this point. Bob Heil, K9EID. What is going on with you, sir? It's been a while since we've seen you.
Well, I started last March just doing a few club meetings by Zoom. And Zoom has absolutely changed for the better club meetings because they're getting more and more people to show up. They don't have to go anywhere. They can do it in their jammies. And it's really wonderful because the clubs are bringing in a lot of great presentations and teaching a lot of things. And that's where I started off in March. We're just about to pass the 200 mark. And I love it because we're able to share and bring some information to the groups. And I love it. So if you're in a club or not even in a club, I had one the other day, just 3 guys that just did a hang together in a city. They're not in a club. Want to know if I do it? I did it for them. 3 people. I don't care. They cost the same. So just send me a date and then we'll be there. Absolutely. And what I thought I'd do here while I come back and let you have a little taste of what I've been doing all these these many, many months. And most of these will last an hour, hour and a half. Some are 2 hours. They won't let me go because our Q&A sections are, oh my goodness. But we start off in a very simple form. I have many titles because some of them change, but we do get into science of audio. And many of you probably know, but back in 1982, I'd been out of ham radio for 12 years. I was on the road with all of my rock and roll buddies. But when I came back, I was shocked because the radio sounded terrible. And I didn't understand what was happening, and had all their matching microphone things that really weren't built by the companies, but they needed articulation. So I came up with a really cute little box, this little box right here, the EQ200, and I wrote an article, and QST picked it up, and it became the cover award of July 1982, and it was the lead article. As it ended up, we built thousands of these things and sold I don't know how many kits, but it was really fun. But it changed ham radio because ICOM picked up on it, and Dr. Inouye now has a 2-band EQ, the EQ200, in all of his radios. And so what I want to do is quickly go through it because we have to adjust things properly. The ALC meter is actually there for setting microphone gain. If you had a 9000 Yaesu, it doesn't even have an ALC meter on it. Well, it has a meter and it says mic gain. That's what they all should say. That's how you set it. You can probably see one over my shoulder back there. That's the way it should happen. It never lays all the way over in the red, just touches it once in a while. And this sets your transmitter bandwidth and all of that. But we need to adjust equalization for articulation. That's so very simple. In the ICOM, it's really easy. 7300, you go there, you want to roll off the bass. We don't like a lot of bass because if you have too much bass, it covers up all of the great articulation. So you want to do that. You want to roll that off a few dB, and then you want to punch up the mids. Because if you don't have the mids, if you don't have that 2.5 mid-range, if you take it out, this is what you have. You lost all of the articulation, transient response, dynamic range. It's all gone. Well, we make sure that you understand how to do that. And they're all the same as far as what they do, except if you want to do DX work, you want to take all of the bass out, -5. You want to punch up all you have of the treble. No, it doesn't sound great, but oh, buddy, it puts your RF right where you need it. And the other thing about that, before you do anything, you want to check the transmitter bandwidth. And for the DX operations, you want to roll her off at 500 to 2500. So it kind of helps you get rid of all of that. And why do we do that? Well, I have a really cool little demo. If this was your RF signal, RF is the air. Just think about it now. If you shorten this up to 500 and 2500, well, hey, that RF's got to go somewhere. Where's it going to go? It's going to go where you have 2.5 dial up real hard. And so now you have ultimate articulation to cut through the pileups. And you do that by adjusting the transmitter bandwidth and the equalizers. And it makes no difference what kind of radio. You have to pay attention to all of the science of it. And we learned this from 4,000 engineers years ago. And sometime I'll come back and explain all that to you. But Bell Labs did it best. They figured it all out. Here's a 7610, same deal. You have all of the same way to set it. The 7851 and a lot of the Pro 1s, Pro 2s, they have graphs that look like this, the bass and treble. But it's all pretty much the same settings. Now what do we do? The parametric. I'm really saddened because when I do these club meetings, I always ask how many people have parametric EQ and how many of them are still in the default mode? Most of them. Why? Because they're afraid. They don't know where to go. Well, if I could take the time, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and I had a young child, 10 years old, standing beside me, I could teach them. So I'm going to teach you really quickly. Check it out. This is so simple, but oh, is it so important? You see, parametric EQ, it's not set. Shelving EQ, I was the engineer. I set one of these, the low filter, at 160 hertz. The only thing you can do is increase or decrease. Most of the time, you're going to decrease that. What about the second filter? I set it at 2.5K. That's the spot right there for articulation. You can increase it or decrease it. And so now, with parametric EQ, you can change the parameters, and you are the engineer. So here we go. You have 3 filters, and none of them are set. They're at 0. You have to set them. This is where the problem comes in, really. What you do, let's take the first filter. We have 3 controls. First, you're going to set the frequency. Let's set it at 160, say 200 cycles, low end, okay? Set it at 200. Then you have a bandwidth of that filter. Do you want it to stretch all the way out to 400? 800? Nah, we keep it 1 or 2 octaves. That keeps it kind of narrow, that band. What's the next button? Plus or minus. It was that simple. This filter, you set the frequency, you set the bandwidth. You always set it the same at 2 octaves, you're okay. And minus on the bass. Now we have a second filter. What do you do with that? There's something in audio, and this went through my whole career, even in the arenas, anywhere we went. Audio has a boxy sound to it. Do this to your head. You'll hear what I mean. It's just a boxy sound. You want to get rid of that. And it's between about 900 and 1200, right in there. So I usually set that second filter at 900, 2 octaves, and we're going to notch it. Was that hard? We have 2 of them already figured out. Now what are we going to do with the third one? You're probably already ahead of me. 2.5K, 2 octaves, and plus. We want a lot of 2.5. You have to listen to yourself to really smooth it all out, but you have 9 controls. Don't be worried. 3 filters, and they all do the same. You, the engineer, can set them where you need it. Very, very, very simple. There you are. This is what one of the Yaesu parametric screens look like. You set the frequency, you set the level, and you set the width. The second one, you set the frequency, you set the level, and you set the width. And the third one, same thing. Now, they all have assignment numbers. I'm really sorry when I took this picture, it came out so fuzzy, but all the way that left column are numbers. 101, 102, 103. Those numbers change from rig to rig. So if you bought a new 101, those assignment numbers probably won't be the same as a FT5000. But don't worry about that. That doesn't mean anything. What means anything is there are 9 controls. Just what we said. Frequency, level, width. Frequency, level, width. Frequency, level, width. And don't be afraid to play with it. But a lot of people, they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to get things all messed up. But the first thing you do with any of these DSP radios and in setting, you want to set that bandwidth first, depending on what you want to do. If you're going to rag chew, don't worry about it. Leave it at 100 to 3.0 or 2.9, which some have different ones, but that 3000, you're going to keep that. And everything will be pretty flat. But you want to increase that 2.5 with the equalizer, and then the bandwidth filter, as we showed you, you can really roll it off. But when it's all done, things are so much better. And it's really easy, but it really makes me sad because I designed this thing for them back in 2000. I think it was 2 we finally got going on the 9000. What a marvelous transceiver that was. And it opened the door for a lot of things. And of course, the best thing you have to realize is that you want to know how to use a microphone. You never want to be more than 2 inches from it. And you want to make sure that you speak into it and not have any problems. But oh boy, it's a whole world, and that's why it takes a lot of time for me to go through some of these things. This is just a little piece, but I just thought I'd show you some of the things that might be able to help you just in a few minutes. And as I told you, you could take a child and they could set up a parametric equalizer, frequency, bandwidth, plus or minus. How simple. But don't be afraid. But I always listen to myself in another receiver with headphones. I put the transmitter in a dummy load, and I usually take just a clip lead and stick it in the antenna. You're not going to blow it up in the antenna of the receiver. That works great. So that's what we've been doing, and I just love it because I get to meet so many of people. And Zoom is great because it's one-on-one, and several times we've had over 130 people, and it's just great. So send me some dates and we'll come visit you guys. But we'll be back here periodically as we start down the path of 2021. What in the world is that doing? Oh, but thanks a lot to everybody for having me. And I'll stick around and watch the chat room for a little bit till they have to go wing out to the West Coast. But it's sure fun, and I'm so blessed that Josh, you picked this up, and everybody else is there. That is wonderful, because this particular show has really helped thousands of hams. We know that from all the letters that Gordon and Don and all of us get. We get letters, we get emails and phone calls. So when you get on the air, you hear people talking about they learn things from Ham Nation. So happy that we're still here. Nobody went anywhere. So thanks a lot, Josh. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Bob. And it was really super special to hear from you the other day. And you said, I happen to have an opening and I'd really like to join the viewers. And I said, of course, anything for you, Bob. So we did get a couple of questions in chat for you. The first one has nothing to do about your lesson, by the way, but it is important that they know that your background is not for show. This is an active ham shack behind you, is it not?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You listen to 3885 every morning and you'll see a lot of that stuff on AM. Now, some of that stuff is over 65, 70 years old, and most of it's been around with me since the late 50s. So, oh, yeah. And what we have behind me, though, you see, I do things for ICOM. There we go. They just sent me their 705. Ray said, okay, here, Heil, take a load of this. If you haven't seen this, well, you've heard about it, but you need to go buy one. Oh, my gosh. This is a 7300 and a little 3-pound box, battery operated. Yeah, it's 5 watts, but you know what? I put it into one of my amplifiers and I get a couple hundred watts out of it. But it's made for the backpack guys, and we make headsets for all kinds of things. But this one has a very special microphone input. There's nothing out there that'll work in it. So that was my job. So we're right now procuring parts. Took me a little while to figure it all out because it's not just a tip ring sleeve, and because it's push to talk and all that. But we got her going, and so the 705s, very soon we'll have a very cool little headset for you. But that's what I do, and that's what all this stuff is about. And of course, with that is my parametric equalizer and all these things. But it's all working. I mean, it's not just sitting here. I don't have the antennas on all of it, but yep. And a lot of times people will just call me, and we'll go do something. It works. I don't say I don't have the antennas on, but could be. But send me an email, give me some times, and we'll get on the air. But yeah, this stuff is it really is a working lab, and kind of nice to have it to get on the air once in a while. So I hope that answers that, Amanda.
It absolutely does. And before I let you go, I'm going to introduce Gordo, but I bet Gordo probably has some comments for you too. So Gordo, go ahead.
Oh, I'm always learning from when Bob's on the air, hearing him live and direct from his QTH over the airwaves. And boy, you can really hear the difference. And Bob, thanks for telling us this, because we can literally hear when we knock out the lows and accentuate the 2.5s. It's action that can be actually heard loud and clear. Amanda?
Absolutely. Well, Bob, again, thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate it. Stick around if you want. If not, we're going to send off to Gordo here with the short shots.
Okay. Well, take care of everybody, and we'll come back and make sure everything's okay. And I appreciate the time, and greetings to all. And as I said, send me a date. We'll come visit your club. Okay. So we'll see you again here on Ham Nation. Thank you very much to all. Thanks to all the viewers, and especially thanks to Josh, because I wouldn't be continued if he didn't step up. So thanks, man. We'll talk later. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks, Bob.
Oh, that was great. Thanks so much, Bob. And Bob, I still have your QSL card. It's 45 years old when we worked AM on the 6-meter band,
Yes.
Very close to the peak of the solar cycle in 57. Well, let's talk mobile again. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about mobile antennas, and tonight we're going to continue that. But before we do, let me tell you about all the antennas we saw at QuartzPause. So Josh, if you'll start with that first photo, and I promise I'll clean up my hair after taking my hat off. QuartzPause was a success. No, we didn't have 1,000 folks there. 250 hams on scene. Many of them were extra class and general class. Many were on the technician class bands and talking up the storm. Of all those hams, that's Rick Paquette, W7RAP, Arizona section manager, welcoming us all to Arizona. And we had seminars after seminars, all remote on the 2-meter band, 146.55. And joining him throughout the week was Dick Norton, N6AA. And let's see, we had Tom, W3TOP, make that TOM, I believe, Tom, from the American Radio Relay League Atlantic Division. We had so many folks there from all over the place. QuartzPause was a big success. And as you can see here, the weather wasn't too bad at all. We were quite fortunate. Well, as we do every year, we had the off-road trip, and 25 units this time, not the normal 50 to 75 that we've had in the past, but they had a ball. And if you look real carefully, you can actually see some of the antennas, some of the HF antennas that were on the air. Well, when the pandemic hit, and all of the other Hamfests were getting canceled, Chris, who has been running it for many years, and Lynn, KJ7DSE, who is now an extra class, Chris, KR1SS, they said, no, let's go ahead and make QuartzFest a QuartzPause for this year. And they did it. And they kept everybody totally distanced. And they had ham testing 2 times. And it was just a big success. But we can't wait until next year, because next year it will be 25 years. And then we'll see the 1,000 or so come on back. Well, let's talk about antennas. And many folks said I needed to pay more attention 2 weeks ago on the great Hustler antennas. And Hustler's been making HF antennas for a long, long time. not quite as long as the Webster band spanner. No, I don't have a picture of my band spanner here. I loaned the antenna, never loan an antenna, and it didn't come back. But the Webster band spanner was the first way on HF that we could get on the air without having to stop the vehicle and unscrew the antenna coil. This one looks like 75 meters. Probably the 400 watter, but that's a nice installation. But you know, for getting started, we still, as we showed you 2 weeks ago, recommend the simple ham sticks. So now we'll go to the next shot, and the next shot shows here's a way to actually get 3 different bands off of one antenna. And when properly tuned, there's a little retuning necessary to get them all playing properly. You've got a great mobile antenna system without having to change resonators, as long as you choose which resonators you're going to put on. And for those that are in a condo, you can actually put them end to end, twice the investment on resonators. But as you can see in the background, here's one good way to be able to get a HF signal on the air with great results here. And there we go. The antennas are a little windy, prone to wind, so you want to make sure and have them with a small nylon line to keep them in place. But here's a great way to get on the air on 3 different bands without having to do a thing. Just watch out for the trees. Years ago, we had similar antenna designs. This one, and it escapes my brain. You in the chat room will have to tell me. This was popular among maritime mobile operators. They had a little ferrite sleeve that would go in and out to precisely tune it, but this was a 4-band high-frequency antenna. And of course, we always encourage you gotta home brew. And I love this. It may look a little awkward, but when I looked at the SWR when the operator came back on each band, it was flat. Great job of doing it up. Of course, we've seen the big coils at ham fests, and these are wonderful coils. The idea is to get them up as high as possible, get a nice long whip on the operating end of the coil. And I say the operating end of the coil because the high voltage takes place above the coil. Major current at the base of any high-frequency loaded antenna. So here's another good antenna installation, but the coil is relatively low, but the operator added a capacity hat above the coil. You can see it partially in the picture, and that capacity hat really made a difference. And in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about capacity hats on all sorts of different high-frequency antennas. About 20 years ago, a fellow pulled up to the house with a very strange antenna. He's not strange, Don Arnold, W6 GPS, and he came out with the Australian Outbacker. And while it's not an automatic antenna, you select the band by properly adjusting into the correct tap. It's a great performer. But it needs a good base, and here's the Diamond K400 with a 3H24 receiver, and it works very well to resonate that antenna and keep it sturdy without blowing off the vehicle. You want 20 meters? You tap into 20 meters. And each of the taps are clearly marked there. What I do is I go to the next tap up and then add a much longer stainless steel whip. So I'm actually on 17 meters, but a real long whip to bring it down to 20 meters. And anytime you can rid yourself of turns of coil, small coils, then you're in business. And that's Ken, KB6 EVR. He says, what the heck, I've got a magnetic mount. I'm going to go ahead and put my Outbacker horizontal. And he was a regular hearing stations, including Bob, from his HF installation here in the sideband, in the Southland. Well, we've seen a lot of different antenna designs. This one came out of the Great Lakes area, but again, maximum current at the base. And when you have maximum current at the base, you're going to encounter I squared R losses in the coils. So while it tapped up there, I would have rather seen that on a much taller 3/824 threaded whip, and then the coil, and then another whip on top of that. But it did work. Well, now enters the high Q antenna. And the high Q antenna is part of Charlie Gaines' antenna setup. He builds them for both hams as well as commercial and the military. Charlie is sort of retiring. He's still working with the Marine Corps' antennas aboard some of their amphibious vehicles. But now there's a new owner, Scott, and it's at highq.com, www.highq.com. Real important that the high Q antenna, a lot of different parts in it, and he's got all of the parts, he's got all the machinery, he's got everything. And very shortly, Scott and Charlie tell me they're going to do the new website, and you'll be able to make contact with highq.com. You can do them an email as well, and they are in Arizona. So the antenna lives. Now, the other antenna is for 2 meters, 220, and 440. Notice the marshmallow on all three. I didn't realize what some of the pranksters at QuartzPause a couple of years ago did, but I did encounter on the way driving back home on the 2 meter band, motorists would come by going, "Fire! Your antenna's on fire." Yep, 100 watts will light a marshmallow quite nicely on VHF. Little fun there. Well, back to these antennas that are motorized. The motorized antennas that have a large coil have a very high Q and minimum I squared R losses in the coil winding. But that's a big 4-inch coil, so you really have to have a substantial mounting on it. And as we tune up and down, we hit resonance. And resonance occurs when inductive reactance equals capacitive reactance. And you can minimize the amount of inductive reactance by putting a top hat, which we'll talk about in 2 weeks. And the motorized units sometimes are a little hard to hear when you hit resonance by that going up and down to make contact with the inside coil. But I want you to listen to what it sounds like when you hit resonance. Listen carefully. Do you hear that noise rush up? That's when I hit resonance with a manually tuned high Q antenna, much like they're making for the military now. Listen again. When I hit resonance, you'll hear the noise abruptly come up and abruptly go away. Notice how tight that is? That means a pretty tight bandwidth, but very, very efficient due to the windings and the techniques for getting the windings just right. That was with a manual adjuster. They're hard to find. They're not making them anymore. So if you find a high Q antenna made in the USA with manual adjusting, it's great for demonstrating the high Q capacity of that particular antenna system. And that's George. He's got his high Q off to the right-hand side. And as he runs it up and down, again, you hear resonance. But that's a big mama antenna for someone just getting started in ham radio. And this, yeah, this is a good one. But again, that's a lot of HF antenna. The reason that the coil is so large is to give good performance on the lower band, such as 40 meters, 60 meters, and 75 meters. This means that when you get down there, the little smaller turn antennas, like the ham sticks, yeah, they'll do well, but they won't give you quite the snap that a high Q with a large coil will give. So that's the deal on that particular one, and that is the high Q antenna, and that's with one of the larger coils. Yaesu makes the ATAS, and when I saw this relatively small antenna, the outside slides up and down, and the ATAS works with the FT100, the 847, the 857, 891, 897, a whole bunch of Yaesu radios that have the controller that looks at SWR. And when you have a good match, it stops the tuning. You don't have to listen for that noise. And presto, you're going to have good power output on that antenna whip. And what a lot of folks are doing that we'll talk about in 2 weeks, are adding a capacity hat to the whip, and it really decreases the amount of loading necessary to get it on frequency. But the ATAS antenna is relatively easily mounted. It's relatively lightweight. And there are some adapters to convert it over to be controlled by an ICOM or a Kenwood radio, but it's really designed for the Yaesu radios. Here it is on a Jeep, and again, not a real high-profile type of an antenna for high-frequency operation, and it goes all the way down to the 40-meter band. Oh, look at that, mama. Well, now we're really talking about the Tar Heel antennas. And the Tar Heel antennas are very much in production. They're out of Missouri, Joseph, Missouri, and the Tar Heels are major. But you can get with the ones on the right are major, but they have the little small Tar Heel, then they have the little baby Tar Heel. So they've got it, and you want to go to their website, and that is tarheelantennas.com, and you'll learn all there is about the Tar Heel, TARHEEL antennas. And as you can see, they mean business. They do a wonderful job of working with clients that have got the antenna on their vehicle and are getting a good ground and working all the details out. But Tar Heel antennas are so well respected. Even the little baby Tar Heel that we see on the haul-around cart at the old Dayton Hamvention site. And as you can see, they're not a big high profile. Their coil is not quite as large as the high Q antenna coils or some of those other big 3 and 4 inch coils, but they do a remarkable job on 40 meters. But once you get down to 75, if you haven't got a coil about the size of a garbage can hanging off the end of your vehicle, you won't have as much signal as those of us brave enough to put a big mama behind the back of our vehicle. Now, the nice thing about the Tar Heel is they have all sorts of ways of resonating the antenna. And they have automatic little devices that will remember the number of turns that get the antenna where X of L is equal to X of C, creating resonance. And the antenna can even be on the smaller ones, maybe the baby one and the small one, can even be placed on a 3-magnet mount. And I know you're going, but does it really make a good DC connection? No, it doesn't, but it makes a capacitive DC connection. And if you get the real pro magnet mounts, the triple, it'll stay on and it will load up quite nicely. They've got clear ones for those that want to see the motorized Tar Heel antenna go up and then go down. And by the way, I'm told that on the high Q antennas, they're going to a new type of motor that should be silent, so you can actually hear when you hit resonance. So there's a Tar Heel again, and I'm not sure if it can. Yeah, it comes with that color, I guess, but you can paint the base of it. You want to stay off of anything that's in that coil area. However, some hams put little tiny marks on it, so they look in their rear view mirror and manually either do 12 volts positive or 12 volts negative and run the motor up and down until they hit resonance. But be careful, you're going to burn the motor out if it doesn't have some sort of a limit switch when you hit all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom. And since QuartzFest was full of, and specifically for RVers, look at all the RV mounts. Some of them come off the old satellite dish lift and lay type of systems. And again, this was in the Tar Heel booth, but there are many different configurations. And one of my favorites we saw at QuartzFest a couple of years ago was a sort of a telescopic rail that when this ham gets to where they're going, they push a lever and the whole thing goes up that track, and presto, they're on the air. Probably wouldn't work worth a darn seated like this, but what a great way to get that feed point way up high, and that's where you're going to get a good radiation pattern. Now, many of these antennas have a coil that looks like they're shorting it to ground. They are. That coil is going to raise the impedance to 50 ohms. However, this fella had an intermittent. He goes, darn thing, just, I don't know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Went back there and I looked at the coil, and where they have the lug on the coil, it was just touching barely the horizontal grounded section below it. The coil end going to the antennas, to the hot part of the antenna. So I just bent it up a little bit when he was not transmitting. And I said, try it now. My gosh, he thought it was just magic. Well, you need to watch carefully what you're doing there. Another way of matching an antenna that's not quite impedance 50 ohms is with the MFJ. They have a coil version and a capacitor version. The capacitor version is what I use here, but a lot of folks that drive in the Midwest like the coil to ground, different coil taps that you see here on a toroidal inductor, because the coil will deplete some of the static buildup that is developed on the antenna whip. And again, big coils mean they're going to have minimum loss, and there you see the capacity hat and near the top of that photo. And a lot of hams, you see some very strange antennas, but don't laugh when they go QRZ and they're getting a station from Australia coming in on 40 meters in the early morning hours. So they may look a little strange. But I think the award goes to the best homebrew antenna that we saw. This one at Dayton, Ohio, several years ago, and it indeed was a kludge. But it worked very well as long as you have enough plastic bottles left over. So the antennas that we're talking about, here's the big one from Heil. That's the big 4-inch coil. And for those of you just getting started in ham radio, that's going to be too much. Give it a year or two on the air. Here's a nice 2-inch coil, and this one is from Heil, and of course the top whip goes on top of that. And if you're just getting started, even on 75 meters, a small coil like this, see how small that is compared to the other ones that were on 75? This will lose a little bit of your power as heat, but it gets you on the air as a new ham, maybe 3 dB, 2 dB less than the big coil. But this is a mama. That's going to take a lot of mounting, whereas the ham sticks and some of the other antennas that are center helical loaded do just fine. And when you hook them up to your ICOM 705, I mean, you're going to fall in love. I'll draw a big heart around the ICOM 705. In fact, let's take a look at the ICOM 705 driving some of these antennas.
Love is on the air at ICOM. This sweetheart of a package with the IC705 is the perfect sidekick for hams that like to enjoy what both the great indoors and outdoors have to offer. It's the perfect QRP companion, base station features and functionality at the tips of your fingers in a portable package covering HF 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. This compact rig weighs in at just over 2 pounds, RF direct sampling for most of the HF band, IF sampling for frequencies above 25 megahertz. The perfect accessory for the IC705 is the now available optional LC192 backpack with a special compartment for your IC705 and room for accessories for soda activations or a day in the park. 4.3-inch color touchscreen with live band scope and waterfall, 5 watts with the BP272 battery pack, or 10 watts with external 13.8 volt DC. Single sideband CW, AM, FM, as well as full D-Star functions, micro USB connector, Bluetooth, and wireless LAN, integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger, micro SD card slot, HM243 speaker microphone, and it supports QRP and QRPP operations. The perfect accessory for the IC705 is the now available optional LC192 backpack with a special compartment for your IC705 and room for accessories for soda activations or a day in the park. Other available accessories include the AL705 QRP portable magnetic antenna, BP272 standard battery pack, or BP307 lithium-ion battery pack, micro USB to micro USB cable, USB Type-C to micro USB cable, DC power cable, compact lapel PTT microphone with earphone, MBF705 desktop tray, and coming soon, the AH705 antenna tuner. Visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information on all the great ICOM radios.
Well, thank you very much, ICOM. We appreciate the support. I was on Winter Field Day this last weekend, and I used the 705 for my entire shack. I did 2 meters all the way down to HF, mainly on 40. Using a Wolf River coil antenna, which I know from Gordo's shots, that's one of the honorific plastic soda bottle over the top with the Wolf River. It works great, and I had an extra long whip on it, which basically gave me most of 40, which was a lot of fun. So something else ICOM's doing for us here at Ham Nation is they're doing their bi-weekly contest. This month, they're going to be giving away an ID51A. You go to ICOMAmerica.com/Ham Nation to enter that contest. So we gave away an ID5100A last month. That was Len Stankiewicz that got that. This week, for the swag giveaway, Richard Torrey, W2RMT, Michael McFarlane, K7AJQ, and Keith DeSoto, KN4AQJ1. So all you need to do after watching the show, make sure you go to the link. The link is in the description for this video. It'll take you directly to it. You could even do it while you're watching right now. And you'll be able to join the fun right over there and get into the contest. So thanks again to ICOM. We appreciate it. Let's go ahead and go over to Randy. He's going to tell us all about time, keeping track of time in the ham shack, and why that's an important thing. How's it going, Randy?
It's going good. So, yeah, I get a lot of comments about things that are in my background. So let's go to the videotape and we'll come back and talk about it a little bit. Hello, Randy, K7AGE. In this video, we're going to learn about time and clocks. So, Bernie, what time is it? You got to take your mittens off? Hurry up. You're out of here. Over the years, I've received many emails about clocks I have in my ham shack. A lot of people have seen them in the background, like this one above me here, next to me, and wondering what it is and where they can get it. So we're going to talk about the clocks here, but first I thought we'd talk a little bit about time and how that relates to amateur radio. As you progress in your amateur radio journey, time will become more important. If you're a newly licensed technician, basically probably working with an HT through the local repeaters and such, time doesn't mean a lot as far as tying into your amateur radio activities yet. You basically use local time, what the local time of one of your local nets is, or that type of thing. But as you move to HF, time becomes much more important. So why is time important on HF? Well, as you obtain your general or maybe your extra license, you'll be operating on HF, and you want to keep a log of when you have your QSOs, your contacts, so that you can work towards awards. You worked all states, your DXCC for 100 countries, FT8, you want to keep track of the time there and such, which it kind of does it for you automatically. But we need a common time reference for all the hams in the world. And that common time is UTC for Universal Coordinated Time. I don't know how they get the UTC and that mixed up. Or is known as Zulu or GMT. It's been known by a lot of things. So that's this. We're going to use that same time when we log our QSOs. And why this becomes important is if you use something like Logbook of the World or some other online logging programs, it's going to look to see if the times and dates match up to qualify that as a good QSO. So if I log in local time and somebody else logs in UTC, they're not going to line up and you won't get credit for it. So that's why we use UTC time. So our local time zones are referenced to the UTC time. So the East Coast is 5 hours behind UTC, Central 6 hours behind, Mountain is 7 hours behind, and Pacific is 8 hours behind. And that changes for daylight savings time. UTC does not change for daylight savings time. It's the absolute. Everything else will change around it. Modes like FTH, AT65, Whisper require very accurate time on your computer, probably within 1 to 2 seconds. This is to ensure that the decoding on the receiving end knows when to start looking for the signal and to ensure the decoding functions properly. So we need a way to set our computers for accurate time. So we can set our computer's clock using an NTP, Network Time Protocol time server. The program I use to synchronize my computer's clock is called Dimension 4. It's from Thinking Man Software. You can bring up their web page and learn about it. So when you run the program, you get this window here. And in this window, you have a lot of control over which time server you want to use. It'll show you how much it's adjusted your computer's clock. You can have it automatically synchronize your clock every, say, 15 minutes. I find it very useful. You just have it set so it runs on startup of the computer, and it's always running, and every 15 minutes it's updating my computer. My first fancy clock I bought from Heathkit back in the early 80s. They had the most accurate clock kit, and what this really was is a WWV receiver where it scans 5, 10, and 15 megahertz looking for the best signal, and it will decode the time code subcarrier information and use that to set the clock and to kind of train the oscillator within the clock. For its time, it was a pretty neat toy to have. I still have it. It needs to be restored. One of the problems with these things is that the 5-volt regulator ran very hot and basically kind of damaged the PC board and maybe some of the other components around it. So I need to tear mine apart and restore it one of these days. But back in this day, it was pretty neat. $250, and you solder it all together. And if you have a shortwave receiver, your ham transceiver, you can tune in to WWV at 2.5, 5, 10, 15, and 20 megahertz. So a neat thing to do is to program all those frequencies into your memories in the radio. And you can quickly step through them and take and determine the band conditions. If you hear the female voice, that's WWVH out of Hawaii. The male voice, WWV, is out of Fort Collins, Colorado. And WWV has been on the air for, I think, 100 years. So tune it in. So let's take a quick listen in to WWV. This is 2.5 megs. Pretty noisy. 5 megs, we can hear it. 10 megs, nice and strong. Good signal on 15. Not hearing anything on 20. Let's go back to 10. Female voice is very weak. Hawaii. Male is Fort Collins. There's Hawaii. No male voice. So, WWV on HF. This is an interesting mechanical clock I found in a gift shop. What caught my eye is that it does both local time and 24-hour time for UTC. So the white hands are the minutes and hours for local. It's got a red seconds hand ticking away, and the red hand is the 24-hour time. So you can see it's a little after 1 UTC, so it'll be 1:28 or 4:28 local. So this is a Trin Tech, I believe it's called, and there's a lot of variations of this when I started to look online. So this is not an atomic clock. It does not receive the WWVB signal to set itself, but it's nice to have on the wall. So this is my newest, most favorite clock at the moment. I saw this posted on Facebook or Twitter. Somebody had one, I forget where, and I had to have it. So this is from Mixella. It's in the UK. It's a kit. It's 100 pounds, or about $137, which includes shipping. And it gives you year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds, and hundreds of seconds. And this is locked to a GPS. The receiver's on the back side. And there's a little antenna here. It's about 1/4 of an inch by, 3/4 of an inch. And it's inside the house here, and it picks up just fine. The 1 pulse per second out of the GPS receiver is used to pulse the colons here. This clock can be set up for normal daylight as well as a standard time. And this would change here between DST and PST or whatever you would have. And I wrote them, I said, can you make it UTC always and only? And he modified the code, and this only runs in UTC. And it's pretty neat. I bought some red plexiglass filter material from TAP Plastics, and they'll cut it for the size that you want. And I ordered multiple pieces with the idea to make a box for this, but you can see the red filter.
Hey, how are you?
Really improves the contrast.
Okay,
So,
I just finished it.
let's turn it up here and see how well it's doing.
Go in and see what's going on with Sarah. Oh, you finally got that gray box working?
Universal times.
Good, good. Okay,
Cool.
there you go. Well,
So this is Ham Clock running on a Raspberry Pi. It's an interesting piece of software. It does an awful lot. It's like a poor man's Geochron. If you don't want to spend $550 on a big monitor, you can, for the price of a Raspberry Pi, you can have this running on an older monitor. And it does a lot of things. I have it currently tracking the ISS space station. It tells me it will rise in 1 hour and 9 minutes over my location there. I have this window here. These little displays you can choose different types of information. So I'm showing the number of sunspots, which is 0. The solar flux index is 74, and it grabs online pictures of the sun. The time display, when you boot up the program, it cycles through looking for NTP servers. It checks a few, and it finds the one it likes the best. It sets the clock, so that runs accurate as well. I just missed the WWV beep, so kind of neat thing to have. So I hope you were able to learn a few things and find out about the clocks here that I use in my ham shack. It seems like when daylight savings and we switch in and out of that, after 20 or 30 clocks, I have them all in the house reset. So thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel. Again, this is Randy, K7AGE. Remember, technology is no place for wimps.
WWV. All the time, all the time. Same time, same station, every time. WWV. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every second counts at WWV. For a good time, call 555-4-WWV. WWV, for the time of your life. We'll be back with the time on WWV in just a minute. But first, here's another minute.
I love that old.
Wonderful.
That's great.
So I was watching the chat room scroll by. Looks like the Visa card from many of our viewers is going to get warmed up here.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And I just released this on my YouTube channel, and it's a longer version where I talk about some other things like my GPS discipline oscillator, and I'm running Lady Heather software here running, and a few of the other novelty type clocks here that I have in the ham shack. So looks like everybody enjoyed that tonight.
Yeah, very good. That was great.
I
Thank you,
did.
Eddie.
A lot of people said that original clock would have cost $650. I don't know what it would have cost now, but yeah, people are going to have some fun projects.
Other than that, Heathcote clock came out. Of course, back then we used to get paper catalogs. I'd come home from work and find that in the mailbox. And I think the next day I think I filled out the order form and put a check in the mail. That's the way we used to buy things,
Yep.
So, so I think that's about all I have, unless there's any other questions here that pop up. Just thanks, and again, go over to my YouTube channel. Just search for K7AGE over there. So I'm going to pass it on to Don.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, good stuff, Randy. I've got the DX Engineering 24-hour clock up here right above my head here, and it's set to UTC. So it's just a little bit after 1500 UTC here. Good stuff. And getting back to some antennas, mobile antennas that Gordo was talking about, I can attest that the little Tar Heel antennas work very, very well. I've made a lot of good HF contacts on those. But my best HF mobile contact was to Antarctica mobile. And that was a 706 Mark II-G, 100 watts into one of those antennas from Australia, the Outbacker Perth Plus. I got a QSL card from McMurdo Station using a 706 Mark II-G and that Outbacker antenna on the bed of my pickup truck. And those things, if you can find them, they work. There are knockoffs and copies still being made, but man, if I still had that original Perth Plus that I had, I lost it in Katrina, unfortunately. But man, those are great antennas. Really, really cool antennas. You do have to change the fly lead on them. It's not as easy as a push button on a screwdriver type antenna, but nonetheless, they work well, very well. Got Antarctica in the logbook. It's the only contact I've ever made to Antarctica, and it was on, and it was mobile. So there you go. Hey, let's get into the news of the week, and also we'll hear from Dr. T with the solar update. But first, here's the news of the week from Amateur Radio Newsline. From Amateur Radio Newsline report number 2257, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. An update on the Bouvet Island 3 Yankee 0 India D-Expedition. All of the teams are pushing to make it happen in 2021.
Paperwork and equipment checks have kept some members of the Rebel DX group occupied since their arrival in Cape Town, South Africa in early 2021. The team writes on the DX News website and their Facebook page, quote, "The Bouvet trip is on track," end quote. They report that they're going forward with a 2021 D-Expedition in spite of not yet having the full operating budget, noting that they're not applying to any DX foundations or clubs for assistance. Polish D-Expeditioner Dom3Z9DX has organised this trip, which is the team's second attempt at the sub-Antarctic island, one of the most coveted DXs on the planet. The expeditioner's first attempt in 2019 was scrapped by the ship's captain after a severe cyclone swept in, damaging the vessel and making a safe landing unlikely. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm John Williams, VK4JJW.
Not all organizers of amateur radio events are looking to cancel their plans for 2021. With COVID-19 precautions in place, Europe's major gathering is feeling optimistic about its summer plans.
Mark your calendars for now. A COVID-19 safety and hygiene plan has been drawn up to enable Ham Radio Friedrichshafen to take place between June 25th and 27th in Germany. Details have been released by the organisers and the DARC, who are hoping to avoid the second cancellation of the largest amateur radio convention in Europe. The safety procedures are outlined on the event website and give details about mask and disinfectant use, as well as cleaning, distancing and contact tracing that will be taking place. The procedures also outline other ways to avoid contact, which include the absence of greeting rituals and cashless payment for anything purchased. For a link to an online PDF outlining the precautions, see the printed version of this week's Amateur Radio Newsline script. The information will be updated in the weeks ahead. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Ed Durant, DD5LP.
The Parker probe sent out by NASA has just made a close encounter of the solar kind.
For the first time since last September, NASA's Parker Solar Probe spacecraft made a close approach to the Sun just as solar activity began to kick into high gear. From a distance of 8.4 million miles, or 13.5 million kilometers, the probe made its approach on Sunday, January 17th. There was plenty of data for it to collect, especially with solar cycle 25 now well underway. Last November, the Sun had its first major flare in 3 years. NASA has planned 4 close approaches to the Sun this year, along with 2 flybys of Venus, with the first one happening on February 20th. After that, it's back to the Sun for another close look on April 29th. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Kent Peterson, KC0DGY.
And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at arnewsline.org. With John Williams, VK4JJW, Ed Durant, DD5LP, Kent Peterson, KC0DGY, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don WIlbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now, here's another close encounter of the solar kind from Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW.
Fast solar wind from a coronal hole that's rotated into the Earth strike zone, and no sooner than we begin to calm down from that than we get hit again. Those stories and more in the news this week. This space weather forecast is sponsored in part by Millersville University. Come get certified in broadcast space weather. Visit millersville.edu/SWEN. Although not super busy this week, space weather is definitely keeping things interesting. As we take a look at our front side sun, you can see a big finger-like coronal hole. That has been rotating in through the Earth strike zone. It's been sending us some fast solar wind over the past couple days. That hasn't been super fast, but it has managed to bring aurora clear down to mid-latitudes. As a matter of fact, we've seen aurora in Scotland, in the UK, and clear down as far south as North Dakota in the United States. But it's only been a little bit fleeting, and it's sadly beginning already to die off. But there is more, because we look behind it and we have yet another coronal hole. It's a very small one, but it's also going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone here in the next couple days. So it will likely give us another boost of fast solar wind and give us another chance for aurora, especially at high latitudes. Now, on top of that, we also have a few bright regions in the north. One of them has been numbered region 2801. So we do have a sunspot on the Earth-facing disk, but it likely, along with the other ones, is going to be rotating off of the west limb here in the next few days. And sadly, with it, the solar flux is going to tank a little bit more than it already has. So we're going to be sitting easily in the low 70s over the next, easily week, maybe even more, because sadly, it doesn't look like the sun's far side has much going on for it right now. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, you're just going to have to hang on and hope that things get better pretty soon. Switching to our M-flare threat meter, as we take a look at the X-ray flux, you can see it's continuing to drop over this past week, and therefore by proxy, so the solar flux is also beginning to drop. You can see we popped a few B-class flares back on the 29th. This was from region 2801 that did fire off a couple little mini solar storms. They're more like blobs that we call them, and they weren't really Earth directed. So really the storming that we've been getting recently is far more due due to that fast solar wind hitting Earth and anything that region 2801 has been sending us. But sadly, even that activity has kind of died down, and you can see that X-ray flux continuing to drop and continuing to drop. That's because these regions are now rotating to the sun's far side, and we're going to lose them in the next few days. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, I'm so sorry to say it, but we are barely hanging on to marginal radio propagation on Earth's day side, and it's easily going to continue like that over the next few days, possibly a week or more before we see a reprieve. But hey, at least you GPS users, you'll love this, because this means that day side reception for GPS should look pretty good. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are in the middle of that fast solar wind stream that's hitting Earth, and it's brought some aurora clear down to mid-latitudes over the past couple days, but things are beginning to wane. At high latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled conditions, but we still have up to about a 25% chance of a major storm, and that's going to wane just a little bit over the next couple days. But then remember, we get that second coronal hole with some more fast wind, so we could be back up to active conditions at high latitudes as we enter the weekend. Now, mid latitudes, we're also expecting unsettled conditions right now, but we only have about a 20% chance of active conditions anymore. And again, that is going to wane easily over the next couple days, but we also have a slight chance of jumping back up to active conditions, only about a 15% chance. But that will be in the weekend, and that's going to be from that fast solar wind from that second coronal hole that's going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone. And that should give aurora photographers a possibility for aurora in through the weekend, just a skosh. So just be careful. It may not be as exciting as you want, especially if you're mid-latitudes, and only if you're dedicated should you chase. Switching to our solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, everything continues to be in the green when it comes to big solar flares. We do only have one region on the Earth-facing disk right now, and it's not flare active, so we have no risk for radio blackouts, and this should make you GPS users on Earth's day side very happy. GPS reception should be pretty good right now on Earth's day side. Now, sadly, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, where things aren't looking so great for you right now, we do have one region. This is region 2801 that's on the Earth-facing disk, but this region is beginning to rotate to the sun's far side as we speak. So we only have about another day of it before it completely disappears behind the sun's west limb. Luckily, though, we do have solar flux sitting at about the mid-70s right now. It will likely die down just a little bit to probably the low 70s. So it looks like we'll hang on to marginal radio propagation on Earth's day side, which might actually be a little bit enhanced on the Earth's day side because of the solar storms that we're having right now that are pretty weak. Earth's night side is another story, however. So just hang in there. Even though we don't have any more regions that we expect to see rotating into view easily over the next 3 to 5 days, maybe longer, this may be kind of the way things stay for a while. So just hang in there and we'll get through it. Now, meanwhile, also because we are still trying to climb out of solar minimum, the cosmic ray flux will be a bit more intense than we'd like it to be. So you frequent flyers, and this does include aircrew who fly over 800 hours annually and fly at high latitudes and high altitudes, your cosmic ray dose, your radiation dose, will be a bit larger than you want it to be. It's at the moderate range right now. So please take this into consideration in your flight plans. So while the space weather this week isn't the most exciting, well, it's also not the most boring either. We have some fast solar wind that's hitting Earth now from a coronal hole that's rotated in through the Earth strike zone. It's managed to bring aurora down to mid-latitudes, and it could continue to do that over the next 24 hours or so before things begin to wane. And then we have yet another burst of fast solar wind from another small coronal hole that's going to be rotating in through the Earth strike zone. So your aurora photographers, especially at high latitudes, you should really enjoy this time. You should be able to get some beautiful shots. And for you aurora photographers at mid-latitudes, well, hang in there, and you could possibly get another chance for aurora in through this weekend, but just know that it's going to be a bit sporadic and it won't last all that long. So just be diligent. Now, also amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, we have region 2801 that's on the Earth-facing disk right now, it is a northern hemisphere sunspot, and that is helping boost that solar flux up into the mid-70s for the moment. But sadly, it's rotating to the sun's far side here over the next day or so, and that means solar flux will continue to drop. But I don't think we're going to get below the 70s for solar flux, which means we're going to hang on to marginal radio propagation on Earth's day side. So enjoy that, and just know that on Earth's night side, this week is going to be a little bit dicey because of the solar storms that are kind of coming in waves a little bit for you. So just hang in there, and hopefully we'll get a reprieve from this here pretty soon. Now also, you GPS users, well, you know, day side reception should actually be pretty good for you right now because the solar flux is low and we don't have any flare activity right now. The night side might be a little bit more dicey, of course, because we have the solar storms going, and obviously if you're anywhere near the dawn-dusk aurora or dawn-dusk terminators or anywhere near aurora, you're probably going to have some reception problems, so just keep that in mind. But things should settle down as we begin to move into the next week. Now, one last note is that if any of you happen to be using SOHO data, any of the instruments like LASCO, the coronagraphs, just know the team is having trouble right now because there's been a lot of weather issues and maintenance issues and other issues that have come up. And sadly, yes, some of the SOHO data has been lost. So the team has reached out to me to ask me to tell you that please go easy on them. They're supporting the Parker Solar Probe project right now, and trust me, any data that gets lost just breaks their hearts, as it does mine and likely yours as well. So go easy on them. None of us want to lose data, but sometimes it happens. So, I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.
So much, Dr. T. Now that my mic is unmuted, I can tell you that if you're not following her on Twitter, you really should. It's at Tamitha Skov, and of course, you need to check out spaceweatherwoman.com. And also, now that my mic is unmuted, I can kind of double back on what I was saying before about antennas and those mobile antennas. I can attest that the Tar Heels work great. The little Tar Heels, both the little Tar Heel and the little Tar Heel 2 both work amazingly great. But my best contact ever was on ICOM 706 Mark II-G into an Outbacker Perth Plus antenna, mobile, 100 watts to Antarctica. And I have the card to prove it. I've lost the card since in Hurricane Katrina, but nonetheless, I had the card to prove it. So those mobile antennas, when you set them up right, and ground is everything, they work excellent. So get out there and do some HF mobile. I'm currently not doing HF mobile right now, but man, I got the itch. I so want to get a radio back in my car one of these days soon. Amanda, let's turn it over to you because you've been watching the chat room, and we've got a lot more Ham Nation to come.
We actually do. We've had such a great show. And I have still one more special guest joining me this evening. I have Carrie Krueger, K9FZ, and she happens to be president of the OMISS Club. Now, here's the biggest misunderstanding about this club is that they hear Ole Miss, and so they turn away immediately, and they're like, "Oh, that's not my alma mater. No, bye." So anyhow, we're going to talk about what OMISS is, and that's Oscar Mike India Sierra Sierra, and also talk about the QSO party with OMISS that's coming up next weekend. Not this weekend, February 13th. So first, hello, Carrie. Welcome to the show. It's been a long time coming. I should have had you on a million years ago, and I think the first time I worked this girl was probably in 2012. And yeah. It's been a long time, and you had a different call sign back then also. But first, why don't you tell us about the Old Man International Sideband Society and what they're about?
Thank you. Well, first, thanks for having me on the show this evening. I have not done these, so it's kind of cool to see the process and be a part of it. So thank you for the invitation. The OMISSnet is a Traffic and Worked All States Awards net, and we are in our 40th year. It was founded in 1981, and so this is a big monumental year for us, and we're over 13,000 members and growing every single day, and certainly not without an incredible amount of help because we have a lot of people calling some really fun nets. And we are on almost all the bands now. So that's kind of cool. They can kind of find us any given day of the week.
Absolutely. So that's one of the interesting things is that you can find the OMISS net on a lot of spots. So what, you got 20, 40, and 80 daily. Is that correct?
Yep, 20, 40, and 80 run daily. And then we have 10, 12, 15, 17, 160 on the weekends.
There you go. And then again, on holidays, they run some special nets as well. So the other thing we want to talk about is, how do you join up with one of these OMISS nets, or how do you become an OMISS member?
Oh, that's easy. All anybody would have to do is check into any one of the nets that we host and work just 2 people. Any given time, record the call, your time, just log it. Your time, who you worked, their OMISS number, and what frequency you were on, and submit it with an application, which is $10 lifetime membership. And they can get the application on our website, which is www.omiss.net, right there in front of you.
There you go. And now I saw almost 13,153 members, which is amazing. And I have to say, when I was laid off this spring/summer, I had a lot of time to get on the air. So I joined in on the 20-meter net a lot during the middle of the day. And I heard a lot of QSOs about how they joined in on the net. They probably might have been an OMISS member, maybe not, but they were just so excited to be back on the air because they were stuck at home in their lockdown. So I think that a lot of people joined up on this to finally get their worked all states. And I think that's when I listen to a lot of the net controls on this on these nets, that's their biggest thing, is to get people involved in HF and teach them the ropes. Wouldn't you say, Carrie?
I would, actually. When I first upgraded to general class, I remember when I came home, my dad said, that's it, turn it on, and it was 20 meters. So you got to get on 14,290 and check in. And my goodness, the calls came flooding in, and the welcome and the mentoring that takes place from the NCS stations and the other hams on the net. We're on NetLogger as well, so they can follow along, and AIM is probably the place where people meet all of the friends and make friends by the conversations had there. So it's really cool with the way that they embrace and teach the hobby.
They most certainly do. So now I have 2 things more I want to talk about. Is that we've got the OMISS QSO party coming up. So this is kind of the way that people introduce you to how OMISS works, and that's taking place February 13th. You want to tell us about it?
I will, actually, and I'd love to take credit for it, but I totally can't. K0JDD is our webmaster, and he started this QSO party many years ago. I wish I had the exact number with me and how long ago this has been started. It's been over 10 years for sure. And he organizes it, sets it up, prepares the certificates, does all the tracking, all the logs, helps everybody. And it's just a nice way for the members to be on the air, work each other, work new people. It's all based right around our net frequencies, which are established on the homepage of our website again. And they work for 24 hours and work as many people as they can. The award information is also, there's a banner across the top of that website right now with the rules. So if you click that little red banner there, the rules will pull up for how you work for these awards and the multipliers and all that stuff. John does a really great job. And this year in particular, we will have a really beautiful certificate that's been created, much different than the other years, and honoring our 40th anniversary. And then hopefully for those participants, we'll have a little something extra that we'll be able to send along for those that participate, the members that participate in this QSO party this year.
Oh, I have to mention, I'm following chat here, so a lot of them are they're putting out their OMISS numbers on chat, letting us know that they're here watching. So that's pretty cool. We've got
look at all that, yeah.
Into KOJ, Mike 12823, me number 8000, and I am taking this OMISS party seriously this next weekend, you guys. First of all, rule number 1, go barefoot, because you're going to get double the points. So you got a ×2 multiplier. work every state possible times 2 or times however many states you work, multiplier, and log all of those OMISS numbers. And the funny thing is that you run into a lot of people that don't remember that they became an OMISS member. So I actually had to do the whole work of looking up the 353 people that I contacted and looking them up on the directory to see if they were OMISS members, because you get extra points for that as well. So, Carrie, one other special thing here I wanted to talk about was when I worked Carrie the first time, I think her call was Whiskey 9 Fox Mike Lima, although I find nothing wrong with that call sign because I love FML and I use it all the time in all of my emails. It's a true statement. Actually, I use that statement a lot. But you got a special call sign, and why don't you tell us about it?
I did, and it's been a hard change to adapt from the FML because I really loved it too, and not a lot of people knew what that meant, but you particularly do, which is fun. And my dad unexpectedly passed away. He was the one who introduced me to this hobby when I was 15 years old. I was first licensed in Hawaii, and I was a very young YL out there. And he passed away in September of 2019, and one thing that he nagged me about was getting my extra. Get your extra, get your extra, get your extra. You can't work that extra DX until you get your extra. So I felt bad after he passed away, and he willed me his entire station. And I didn't feel that it needed to come to my house unless I actually passed my extra class license. So I studied. Gordon West, thank you for the books and helping me pass my exam. And I did pass in June, right before the books changed. And I was granted my dad's call sign shortly thereafter. So I am now the holder of K9 Fox Zulu, and it is an honor and it is an adjustment to change. But I just don't know that I could have ever heard somebody else check in anywhere with that call sign in my lifetime. So it's pretty cool.
That's a given for sure. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I really hope I got started in HF on these awards nets and worked all states type of nets, and it was a way for me to have a goal for obviously worked all states, things like that. So the trained people like Carrie and I now join on these nets to help you guys that are maybe new to HF. And we're there to welcome you with open arms. First of all, we're going to teach you how to give signal reports. We're going to teach you about propagation, antennas. And one other thing I want to talk about is that sometimes these people might come by and cruise through and hear these nets, but they don't know how to actually get involved. We've got this cool software called NetLogger, and you can find it on OMISS's website. But Carrie, that's like really the bread and butter of how this runs, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And if you are looking at just dipping your toes, you're nervous, listen. Just find the frequency and listen for a little bit, listen how it's done. And even if you're nervous, check in anyway, because I'll guarantee you our net control stations and the people that relay these nets, they're going to show you how it's done. One call, you'll have it figured out, and you'll be on your way. You won't regret checking in. These clubs are incredibly great at mentoring, and OMISS is a step above many.
I agree. I really have a lot of fun. I don't have a lot of time to do a net control. Like, it's a lot of work to do to be a net control. I really have fun being a relay station instead. So, Carrie, thanks so much. I hope we, I did have one other question. Do you have to be an OMISS member to participate in the OMISS QSO party?
No. Nope, I don't believe that you do.
Okay. There you go. You guys get out there, get on the air. You're going to hear me on 20 most of the day. Barefoot, no less, trying to make all those QSO points I can. It was a close competition last year. That's all I have to say. So it was really close. I'm talking to within 10,000 points. So thanks again for joining us, sister. I really appreciate it. You'll have to come back sometime and tell us how the party went.
I will do that. And I actually moved my 6-year-old's birthday party this year because her birthday's on the 12th. And we normally have a birthday party during the QSO party, so I moved it so I can participate this year as well with our 40th anniversary. So I will see you on the air.
Very
Thanks.
good. Thank you so much for being there. Let's see. We got to wrap this up. I know we're like.
I got to get Amanda back in here. That's the first thing I got to do. We're having fun tonight, guys. We're having fun.
There I am.
There you are. Woo.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks everyone for sticking around this evening. This has been fun. I'm not the wrapper-upper, so I'll pass it off.
I'm the wrapper-upper, so we went a little long tonight. Otherwise, we were watching the chat. We're trying to answer some of the questions, but this is a great opportunity to remind everybody that we're going to do an after chat on my Discord, and the link is in the chat room, in the description for the video. And just a reminder, when you join, you scroll down until you see live stream with a little green circle like we're live, and then you click on that for the text chat and the voice chat. You can ask text questions and voice questions. So we're going to take it over there because we are running a little bit long here. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for everything. And any final words going around the horn here? We'll go with Gordo first. How's it going?
Oh, all is well. I have, unfortunately, another net in about 5 minutes, so I can't join your chat room. But I am coming back week after next, and I'll be happy to answer those questions that I think you and Amanda have on the small high-frequency whip. So see everybody in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Don? We'll go around clockwise.
I don't know that I have anything important or eloquent to add as per usual, but I'm glad that you picked us up, Josh. So I'll echo Bob's words earlier. I saw someone in the chat room said, "Hey, is Bob still on Ham Nation? I haven't seen him in a while." Well, you must have got here late, so go back and watch the replay. We started the show with Dr. Bob, and I hope to have him back on as a guest. A guest. His home is here. So have him back on just as often as we can. So with that, we'll just say goodnight from South Mississippi, Josh.
Thank you very much. Randy, it was great timekeeping stuff there. I really like your long bar. So as Randy said, go watch his channel because it's actually a longer form. You've got more information there. So thanks for that.
Yeah. So there's some more clocks on there and a few other things I cut out. It's about 18 minutes long. So I chopped it down to about 12 for Ham Nation tonight. So I guess we'll... I'm not sure if I'll be on the 17th, but that'll be the next night that Ham Nation is on. So thanks, everybody, for watching, and thanks, Josh, for pushing the buttons tonight.
I'm hanging in there. I'm pushing a lot of buttons. I am. Thank you. Amanda, were you ready to close this down?
I am. I did 2, 3, 4, 500 other things. First of all, it was really fun to watch you on your show the other night. You're tuned in around and you were on 7183. It was good to see on Winterfield Day. I hope a lot of you got involved in that. We did not. We felt kind of guilty doing a home station. So whatever.
I felt kind of guilty doing it from the beach, but I was outside and I did run solar panels, so it was fun.
This is my whatever. I don't really care that you're on the beach.
Hey, you work from whatever conditions you happen to be in geographically. Right. It's not don't be hating because Josh was on the beach. My wife and I were in the hot tub last Sunday, okay? Too bad if you're snowed in. I'm sorry. Move south.
Oh my God, I am the only person that is not snowed in, honestly. Like, East Coast is screwed right now, but we had 63 degrees here. So I actually could have been in my flip-flops outside feeding the chickens. So we'll move on from that.
Yes.
Cloudy picture. You guys, I don't know what to do about my cloudy picture. I am set at the highest quality video. Maybe I just need a new camera.
Yeah, we can talk offline. I've got maybe some ideas. I've got maybe a camera.
If you're using Logitech, probably just update the drivers or update the Logitech software. I did that and mine cleaned up.
All right. I'll give it a shot, you guys. Because I can't afford a new one. So
when in doubt, turn it off and back on. And that's what tech support will tell you anyway. But turn it off. Did you turn it off and back on?
Yep.
Well, hang on. I've got to take my coffee cup out of the CD tray, and then I'll turn it off and back on.
You watched that show. Okay. And yeah, and sometimes Jeff puts a sticky note on here if he's working from home. So I thought maybe it was just the Post-it note had glue on it, but
No,
it doesn't.
Oh, there's your problem, lady. Get you some Windex.
Yeah, no, it seems like it's lower resolution. It seems like it's not pushing HD. That's what it's thinking.
It does appear to be that way. So,
Yeah.
all right, you guys.
We'll look into it.
I'll clean the damn camera and then we'll move on from there.
You got
Come
2
back in
weeks.
2
You got
weeks.
2 weeks to figure it out, right? So it's every 2
All right.
weeks, everybody. Remember. So yes,
Every 2 weeks.
technically
Fire the maid.
That's right. So that's 3 in March, I think, is what is that how that works?
That chick is gone. And yes, and I'm looking forward to trying to do a YL show that I need to get with Val with. That might be our third week or third in March is what I would like to do. So
we need to get Dr. T back on here live too.
Yes. And that's my hopes. And Gordo, I do have a comment for you. I know, I'm sorry. We're so long. But Gordo, the marshmallows, I'm pretty sure that was Jerry and Amy that did that to you.
You're probably right. They would be up to it.
If it's not them, blame it on Ray Novak, and then all is good. So.
And a last little thing before we cut, I got the podcast up. So the podcast started sending last night.
Excellent.
So I just have to post the one that we did 2 weeks ago, and I'll post this one at the same time. We'll just dump them so that we're up to date. So the audio podcast is running, so everybody, thanks for hanging on. It's using the same feed. It should just pop up. Yeah, so we're moving. We're moving, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm good. I'm good to go, I think. So I'm heading over to Discord. Give me a moment because I've got to use the little boys' room after sitting here for a little while, and then I'll be over there. So I hope you join us again. Just scroll down to the live stream, and then that's how you get into the chat room for that, and we'll help you out the rest of the way. Well, thanks everybody again. So from all of us here at Ham Nation to all of you, thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. I'll be live streaming though on Saturday, so stick around for that. And then I guess until we talk to you again, 73.
Good night.